There's a lot of conversation going on recently about men. You hear Scott Galloway, very famous now NYU professor, former advertising giant. He ran L2, and now he's become a thought leader, intellectual leader, and he's talked about everything from the economy to online businesses. He predicted the fall of WeWork through his blog No Malice. But lately, and I mean lately, the last 2.5 years, 24 months or so, he's really been beating this bongo about men and young boys in particular. The incidence of suicide rates are going higher for young men. Young men are not able to date, and we've talked about it here in the podcast. But on the Not Alone pod, there was this interesting clip where the host speaking to their guest, the host Valeria was speaking to their guest. Let's just show this clip real quick, and then we can get right back into it. All right, Jay, as usual, let you take it first. Are men in their flop era?
I mean, I guess according to some metrics, to some people, yeah, they are in an era where, you know, maybe they're not making as much. But I mean, I think this is all relative to dating, right? Like, obviously, you have a lot of men out there who are making enough to take care of themselves, but not enough to take care of them and another
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
So, relative to dating, yeah, it might be a flop era. But I think the bigger point of what some of the other things they talked about was how that could have some really dire consequences.
I appreciated that part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you appreciate about it?
Well, the host, well, excuse me, the guest on the podcast was saying, this isn't a time to say, ha ha, men are getting theirs, or the opposition is getting theirs. They were trying to remove it out of the us versus them narrative or dynamic and push it into something that's real, which is, listen, if we don't have economically and emotionally economically viable and emotionally available men, we're about to enter some dark times. And I know that's a phrase that Scott Galloway uses. Economically viable and emotionally available men, we're going to have problems. And because there's so much of the gender war happening online, most people are like putting it into their narrative, and then we enter this whole kind of narrative warfare where, guess what, the men are getting it, guess what, the whites are getting it, guess what, the blacks are getting it, guess what, the East Asians are getting it, guess what, the South Asians are getting it. And when you make it about destroying another group of people, ultimately that just leads to a darker path, a very dark path. And a lot of us don't see it like that because we're caught in the cycles of outrage porn that just seduces us into more anger, more outrage, and allows us to enemize people, to really just make an enemy out of them. And then we just think that we've won when in reality we've lost. So I love that she said that hey, the fact that men are in their flop era, that they can't buy homes, they can't support families. We also know men are not emotionally available. They're checking out. They don't want to date. They're playing video games. They aren't concerned about their health. This isn't a good thing. I mean, I just saw another clip, or rather a news article that said that scientists have discovered microplastics in men's scrotums, right? And so what is that doing to birth and birthing rates? I'm hearing, I saw Dr. Mark Hyman in one of his courses that I took said that there's over 200 chemicals in utero when a child is just gestating. So we have some serious problems here that are impacting us on a physical level. We don't know to what extent these chemicals and these microplastics are doing to us, but we are seeing a lot of disruption in our society. I don't know what's causing it, but in reality, all this, I believe, is connected because we are creatures of the earth. We are children of the earth. And if the earth is polluted, then we have problems. And just to bring it back full circle to what that guest was saying, these problems are very prevalent, especially if men and women don't get together, and especially if they don't have children. Even economically, if we don't have enough children, we're not going to support ourselves in Social Security and in the tax bracket. We're just going to have a lot of infrastructure and problems and social problems as well.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy, bro. I saw a clip, I want to say earlier today, about the rise of penile cancer in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah, bro, somewhere around like 6,500 surgeries in the past couple of years have been done to like snip snip because these dudes have cancer, and it's like, yo, I mean, obviously it's an STD thing. HPV is causing it,
Oh, HPV. Okay, okay.
but what I'm saying is like if you take that, you know, health challenges, and you know, compile that with the income inequality and men not
Yeah,
being able to do certain things, like, yo, son, it can really
it's like an
give you a
albatross.
picture, like, son, it could be a really dark picture of what's
Mm-hmm.
times to come.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean,
And
yo, whether you are, you know, hetero or homosexual or pansexual or whatever it is, you know, men have a place in society just like women have a place in society, just like everyone has a place in society. And if we are going to move forward as humanity as we know it, like, yeah, we definitely need a place for men to thrive and be successful. Like, I understand the conversation is changing, right? Because you want women to have their agency and their place to say, like, yo, I want to be in the workforce. I don't want to be at home. I don't want to be a
for certain
stay-at-home
groups of
mom just
women.
taking care
Yeah.
of kids. Um, like, yeah, you want the space for them to be able to do that and have that. But I think if it is a play to change society or humanity as we know it, you know, we got to start thinking about, or you know, society, people have to start thinking about what that's going to do to generations down the line, and how even in, you know, your reality that might not necessarily fit into larger society, if you see so much of that change moving down the line, like you said, these generations could become enemies of ours just because things are so different. Like, you know, these young kids, these young boys, I'm just imagining, like, we saw what happened with our community, young boys who don't have the opportunity to get like a real legit
Mm-hmm.
job and work. Yo, a lot of them in the street banging. So I'm just thinking about if that culture becomes, if that, you know, kind of goes out of the lines of just racial or ethnic communities, that's, you start seeing that across the board, like, yo, that could be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Me and you were just talking about this offline, but here in New York City, there's an interesting meetup that just started, and this is right summer 2024, where there's a first responders meetup where men who are typically desired by women who are firefighters. I don't know if you guys know, I've had women around me, uh, older and younger, talk about how sexy firefighters are. But first responders, police officers, men in uniform, they actually do Fleet Week when they come to New York City, and they do Fleet Week meetups. So dudes come right off the ship, right into the club, like, all right,
Yeah,
who's
what
up
we
in here?
doing?
Yeah,
What we
exactly.
doing? Who
Yeah.
I need to save tonight?
So they have these first responder weekends, and it's been making its round in our local IG, and sold out. They put sold out in for July. They have an August going on in September, but here's the kicker that Jay and I discussed, and I'm sure other people who are around our age range, typical target audience. I believe it's free for men to come, but women have to pay. I believe that's how it works, which was bizarre because when you think about it, 20, 25 years ago, into the 90s, beginning of the aughts, the 21st century, women would get in free, men would have to pay everywhere.
Them and they friends, whole groups.
So yeah, it was like free before 11. And you know what? $5. You know what? Just come on, come on. Now to find right, educated, viable men with pensions, great jobs, women are paying, and it's sold out.
That's not strange to me though.
No, I'm just saying how it's changed. It may not be strange. I'm just saying that it's changed.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's
Things definitely,
changed
things done changed.
on this side. Remember they used to dump, but now they blast, right? How you man, Trey? Little
Yeah,
ghetto boy. Yeah.
yeah,
That's just again. I guess I was saying it's strange. So let me walk back to. I do think it's strange, but strange because of the change. Just to
yeah.
be specific, and it just seems like that's where we're at now. Women are paying for access to educated, valuable, healthy men, right? Firefighters, when you're doing your test, you have to be able to, I believe, make sure you can carry a certain amount of weight on your shoulders. So typically these men are in shape, great bodies. They have, a great career ahead of them. dangerous career, but a great career. You can, move up. You can make great money. You get homes, you get discounts, and certain discounts for people who are first responders. So there's a lot of opportunity there
Good
for you.
retirement.
Good retirement. I believe there's a city pension, so that's great. You could probably, once you've retired, go into another probably firefighter system, go into security, make another 100 6 figures. And most of those people are probably consultant security.
Consultants. Yep. Yeah.
That's what I know some police do when they retire. After get their 20 years, they go into consultant security. You go work for, security in a high end building like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs building. I mean, these guys are making great money, and these women are paying, and it's sold out.
I'm not surprised about that. When you think about the consumer, I mean, women are the ones who are more invested in dating. So yeah, they're gonna spend the money for it, and we know women do that anyway. Like if
Well,
they come
girls
out,
trips, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. When
women
you
women are
sell to
gonna come
women,
out.
women are going to invest if they like the product, whether it's ice cream, brunches, wine, trips, good workout clothing, a safe workout space. They're going to pay. They're going to
Hmm.
pay, and they're going to be diligent, and they're going to be accountable to the pay. So that I get. But it goes back to this question of men in their flop era. Like, wow, it almost feels like men are being courted now in the ways in which we measured courtship 20, 25 years ago
25
for
years
women.
ago, yeah, yep.
That's crazy to me. Unless we have our facts wrong that the men pay, it's just right. Assuming if we have our facts wrong, then hey, we stand corrected. But based on the information we know, the men get in, the women are paying.
And these are the kind of changes that I'm talking about. Think about this amplified in the next generation to come,
Well, it's going to be
where
expected.
where
You take me out. You bring in the car. You
forget
open
it.
the
It
door.
ain't no dowry no more, son. It ain't no I'm coming to ask your dad for your hand in marriage. You coming to talk to my parents?
Yeah,
Like, but come
exactly.
on, bro. This is the direction we're heading in. If all of these boss babes and
Yep.
not just that. That's the
Yeah, 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 yeah.
side.
That's
But
just
the other
yeah.
side of this flop era, if men kind of lean in and just be like, all right, you know what? We're gonna turn this on his head. We're gonna lean in and we're gonna make them court us.
Y'all want my PS10? Make sure it's right. You're going to give me a trip to New Delhi because I've been trying to get to New Delhi for a minute. After that, stop over Sri. Oh, you can't afford that? Then you know what?
Yep.
Take your
Exit
little
next.
ratty ring back.
Next.
Exactly. The boys look so good.
Yo, son, that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Well, I guess the girls
That's
look
where
so
we're
good.
headed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we continue down this path, that's where it could
It,
get to.
it, it feels like, I mean, me and you've talked about this before, and some of our listeners may know of these stories. Women who are living with men who don't work, they don't work.
And don't want to work.
Oh yeah, yeah, not like dang, I don't know. I'm just my resume. I'm trying, and I'm sure. Yeah, thank you. Don't
They
are not
happy
working.
on them sticks. They happy.
Don't want to work. Don't cook. Don't clean. Just stay at home and play video games all day. And you can't tell me all that those niggas in that population slinging that dick like a real G should. Because it all can't be dick slinging like
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Miss me with that.
Yeah, Tupac said,
I'm hard
"Miss me
pressed
with
to
them
believe.
lies."
I'm hard pressed to
Some
believe
may
it.
be slinging it like that, but I don't think the whole population of those men, because we're seeing more and more of those men. You're hearing these anecdotes. I don't think it's been properly measured yet, so we want to caveat that, and just put it out there. But there's a lot of anecdotes. I mean, we know somebody, me and you both, who told us he knew about 10 women
Hmm. Hmm.
right here in the New York City area. I know of some stories, men who just won't, don't work, don't want to work. Now, I do believe these men are depressed. I do believe
Hmm.
these men are going through something emotionally. And I think this is what we're talking about, the phenomena of kind of male depression and also this gripping sense of uselessness and meaninglessness that is, just has its hold on so many men, not just here in the New York City area or the East Coast, but really, nationally. But when you talk about I'm staying home and I'm not even contributing, even back in the day when women stayed home, they'd have to contribute. You'd be milking cows if you had a farm. Women did work on the farm, homie.
Oh, for
Baling
sure.
hay.
For sure.
They was putting in work. Some stuff that's considered manly now, those women were doing. And they were taking care of the children on top of that. And sometimes going to the market and selling the goods or the products that the farm produced, managing the books, negotiating land.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about and then maybe he was out more in the public face. He was the one who maybe had the deed on the home, and if he died, he had to leave it to her in the will, even though she was doing the equal amount of work or sometimes greater work for that property, for that farm. Take it fast forward to the urban culture. A woman was at least staying home and taking care of the kids, getting homework done, making sure food's there. You're staying home, like you said, heavy on the sticks, heavy on video games.
You know every cheat code.
Game genie extraordinaire. Got the walkthroughs down pat.
Up,
No
up,
scrubs
down,
all over
down.
YouTube.
Left, right. You know all of that.
And you're not even a trophy husband. Like, all right, at least this dude got an 8-pack and he goes to the gym twice a day. Like, nah, you're not even doing that. You just
doing that.
Yo, did you order the food already?
You're just home, taking up space.
This is what I'm talking about. You always be late with the food. Hurry up and order. I mean, whatever. Just get anything. I mean, are men in their flop? Are men in their flop era?
Yeah, I don't know, bro. I mean, I'm like I said, obviously to some, they are because they're talking about it. I'm grateful that I don't know any guys who are in that position or, live with that kind of mindset. But I'm sure it's out there.
Oh, I know it's out there.
Don't know how prominent or prevalent it is, but I know it's out there.
It's out there. It's out there. There's a lot of stories. There's some stories I've heard, and just like dudes not doing anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I've also heard because I mean, we can't have the conversation without pulling it a step back and figuring out or addressing why they don't want to do anything.
That's what I think the problem is. I don't know. No, they can't solve that yet. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like 100 million narratives about why, but I think one that we could probably presume is that, these men at some point might have had some dreams that either was deferred by the color of their skin or, their lack of skills or whatever it is, poverty, status. Right, their status. But also on a dating tip, they might have been well-intentioned with someone and had their heart broken, and now this is just the place that they're in. Like like you talked about before, they're using their pain to hurt others instead of using it as something to grow from and learn from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think some of them, or I would just presume that a lot of them are like that because one, that might have been what they saw growing up. Yeah. I mean, there were some men from the generation before ours that we saw live like that. So of course that trait is just going to trickle down and get amplified in the next generation. So
here's the thing: there were men of leisure in our time and in my uncle's time, right? I mean, men who just, I'm a gigolo.
I was going to say not just leisure, son. Leisure and lays.
Oh, said.
Because you could have some leisure time.
What kind of car you got?
Would work.
Hammock. Hammock. I've never heard of that. Oh yeah, I just got the hammock between the trees, and I just
the hammock 2.0, that 4.0.
Oh, I got the hammock that when you press the button, your hammock got a button. Yeah, man, I got my joint hooked up.
Yeah, son.
Yeah, exactly. And not like y'all, because y'all use gas to go to work. I just use the natural wind. This is why I'm cutting edge. It's 1975. Y'all got to get ahead. Look forward to the future. They talk about flying cars. Ooh. I got a flying hammock. Meanwhile, your aunt's in there just doing everything. Sweeping and just cleaning, paying bills.
Muscles bigger than yours.
He giving her slack. Yo, just once, can I have my beer one time? Once. You in the hammock, just arms
crazy.
Up.
So what was you saying? It was men of leisure in the generation before.
Yeah, there were, but the cost structures were different. Back in the early 1970s here in New York City, when rent was $150 a month, the average salary was $10,000 a year, right? I think that's 18% of your salary. I mean, the cost of living was not as exorbitant as it is now.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you really living with a woman and relying on her salary, some of these women are crushing it, so they're making 400 or 500. They're doing well, 300, 350. That's still kind of, and you're not pulling your weight financially or trying to or contributing on some level to alleviate costs or bring value to the relationship other than just let me show you the best way to kick your feet up and not do anything for, you know, months and years at a time. It's going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's just all these crazy stories where men aren't working and they're still cheating. How you not work and cheat? I just
Shit,
don't.
shit, the dick work.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
but
defunct.
I just think at the end of the day, this is why, you know, people are like, oh, wait a minute, you know, you're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, it's got to be some scruples about what you're doing, bro. You just
Yeah,
can't be
you
out here
can't be
running
wrong and
amok.
strong.
You can't be running amok out here. Cause listen, if you are irresponsible in who you lay down with, you will surely procreate with them or get them pregnant. You're not thinking about condoms. You're not thinking about anything.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
you're more than likely to bring forth progeny that acts like you, and they're gonna see the example that you set. This is what I'm talking about. Like when I think about where we are, the example that we're setting for the kids with men being in their flop era, whether it is intentional on their part or circumstantial, yo, son, there's a lot of these kids, they feel like, oh, that's all I got to do. And yo, there are a lot more women out here, I feel like, who are younger that I'm hearing, I don't mind 50-50, or I don't mind taking care of the bill or the bills or whatever, because they're seeing more example of boss babes and women who are stepping their game up.
Well, you don't have to be
So,
dependent anymore and just, you know,
right.
reliant on him and
Hmm.
waiting on him, you know, in the sense of his dream
So you
or
think
dream
about that
deferred.
amplified and what that could mean. Yeah, those dark times are on the way. On the way.
I mean, they give a statistic, and I've heard this before, and I always recommend people to get into the book, All the Single Ladies by Rebecca Traister, because she talks about the future. The future is women, and the future is female, and the future is single women. She talks about that in her book. But the guest on the Not Alone pod really talked about how by 2030, I think 50% of women are just going to be single.
For life.
Yeah, for life. Yeah, NWO
That's the big thing.
for
That's the
life.
big thing. It's already a
Yeah,
lot of single women, but
it's for
they're
life.
gonna
Yeah,
be
you're right.
single for life.
There is no
Never
rebound.
mate. Yeah. Well, I mean, they'll mate, but they'll never find a life partner. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
and
big,
some may
man.
not even find that. I mean, and that's tragic. And I believe that we have a tendency because of the rhetoric online and the mechanisms we use online for clicking right, our dopamine circuitry is being hijacked, whether it's, you know, sexual porn or outrage porn, which I think is worse than sex porn, like sex related porn. Uh, we believe that we're going to out argue, out scream, out insult this problem, that we're going to over leverage our anger, our traumas, and just spill it out all on the table, and then think that's going to solve these problems, and they're not. They're not going to solve these problems. It's going to take good community work. It's going to take really, you know, reimagining what healthy social practices look like, and it's going to take really good quality policy. You know, I think his name is Warren Farrell, who wrote The Boy Crisis, talked about this. You know, we really need good policies for boys, and we need good policies, I think, to promote togetherness again in community among not just men and women, but everyone in the United States, especially given our current social political climate, social political cultural climate. But I don't want to get on that hobby horse right now. Just bringing it back to men and women in this gap, these are dark times, because
Yeah.
what's going to happen is men who are viable, and Scott Galloway talks about this, are going to get attention from the majority of the women. The men who are not, who don't have sex, who don't have healthy relationships, who can't bond or mate with a woman, they're going to turn to violence.
Mm.
Not saying that that's an exact thing that's going to happen, you know, if then statement, right? If this, then that, or if not this, you know, going through all these kind of, you know, logic setups. It's just that it's highly probable. this is a probable scenario where a lot of men are going to get violent and they're going to get angry, and they're not going to be in the top 1% of men. And when you made $60,000 back in 1980s, you were fine. You make $60,000 now, there's a problem for a lot of women
Which, I mean,
and men themselves too, right? Because and it's not the women's fault. It's just, I can't do everything that I need to do and move forward. I just saw, an economist talk about this. 1948 to 1973 was one of the most prosperous eras in American history, if not even human history. But
mm,
we know for a fact it's called the Great Compression, where wages were the highest they've ever been to the wealthiest. You could literally work and have a good job and save your way into wealth. Can't do that now.
forget about it. Because you either have some kind of debt or
Yeah.
something.
And that's what people talk about when there's income inequality. What starts to happen is when you remove wages from production and wages are no longer adequate to pay for the needs and desires that you have as a family unit, you now go to credit cards, you now go to debt, you go to borrowing against your 401k and your other retirement instruments or any other
Right,
debt instruments that have been created that you now have to leverage in order to sustain your lifestyle. And it's not like everyone's driving around in a Beamer. Come on.
right.
Some people may be overreaching, and I'm not saying there isn't an overreach on some level, but it's difficult out here for most people, and that's the
So what
truth
do,
of it.
so what are we saving? What's the average person saving? Nothing.
Oh yeah, that's difficult. And even in the podcast, they talked about why I believe you hear a lot of millennials saying, "I'm not having children." I don't think all these people don't want to have children, but when you look at the cost and you look at what you have to sacrifice to get there, it's no longer a community based, institution based event
Yeah,
or
the,
or
the dink movement is getting
yeah,
big.
journey rather. Yeah,
That dink movement is getting really big.
the what movement?
The dink movement, the
What's,
double income, no kids,
oh yeah, okay, yeah,
it's
double
becoming a
income.
really big thing.
It's a strain on the average person and people, and it's unfair. It's not right, even from a citizen standpoint. And I want to again get on my social political soapbox or my hobby horse I said earlier, but flop era. So me and you are both in agreement that men are in a flop era. We also in agreement that if it's not addressed, it's going to have dire consequences.
Mm.
Surprised that none of the presidential candidates nor the parties are talking about it, seeing as it's going to create a major demographic change in America that's going to create major changes in so many industries and institutions that comprise America's success and excellence.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't think they know what angle to politicize it from. That's probably why they're not addressing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
If
can't put
if
it in a way that gives me more votes or makes my party and my stance look good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could put it in a way that sells, then it's going to give me votes and
Oh,
keeps me in power. Absolutely, run these
yeah.
policies all day and twice on Sunday. But
Facts.
I don't know how to I don't know how to put it in my political rhetoric to attract people to me. You know what? This is we'll do better with the climate. We'll do better with either promoting climate change, denying it. We'll do better with the Supreme Court justices, but we're not going to ignore this
Damn.
major
Ooh,
issue.
bro. I know we joking about it, but that just really blew my mind. Because now when I'm thinking about what kind of the like hot button issues have been over the last few years and what politicians or politics as a whole has had the opportunity to kind of politicize and find angles to be able to
Yeah, attract votes.
attract votes. Now I'm like, wow, you see how, and this is sometimes I feel like why men feel like they're not important. Yes, there's been a history of, patriarchy and men being dominant in society, but having power and being powerful are two different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Say more.
Well, I've always heard people say men have power,
Mm-hmm.
but I usually hear people say women are powerful
Mm-hmm.
because it's not necessarily the infrastructure or structure that they have to rely on to move a needle. It's something different. It's their energy. It's the way that they're able to speak to certain things, like how. But obviously, with men, it's like we have power because we have strength. We use our hands and our strength to be able to move things and get things done. Where in a situation where women may lack power, they can still be powerful. So I'm just like, I can understand why sometimes men feel like, yeah, yeah, men, the patriarchy might have power, but as a man in this world, no, I don't feel like I mean anything or I'm significant to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Because
think a lot.
politicians haven't even tried to politicize men's issues.
I think that that's the appeal of certain candidates over others at times. I think they're articulating it in an adjacent way, right? You're running on a parallel track, but you're not on the track that I need you to be on, or one that's going to name it for what it is. I think it's going to get named in the next election, the next presidential national election by 2028, at least by 2032. This is going to be a big issue because I
Mm.
think it's just going to be a slow. It's going to be a groundswell of voices saying, "Yo, we got a problem here, homie." You
Well, I
know.
mean, yeah, if we start seeing more incels or
Oh yeah.
MGTOW, like if that continues to bubble up and swell, there's more school shootings and things like that. Like, yeah, people are definitely gonna have to say, wait a minute now, we've been talking about all these other things, gay marriage and women's suffrage and all. Yeah, hey, we need to make sure these guys are good too.
Well, listen to this. I mean, we don't know much about the shooter who attempted to assassinate former President Trump.
Mm,
Don't know a lot about him. But let's keep it real here. Some of the stories that are coming out seem to overlap with some of the stories that we know of men his age who have committed similar acts of gun violence. Not against, obviously,
mm,
a former president, but against in schools,
someone. Yeah.
in communities, all around. Quiet to themselves, doesn't have a group of friends, bullied in school, not really activated in moving in a particular direction in their life. Yes, they have a job, and
Hmm.
apparently he was very good at his job. He worked in a nursing facility, and he was well liked. He was a dietitian, probably a low paying job. I'm sure it wasn't a job that's paying 800 grand a year, and no real sense of motivation or friends, no political leanings, just existing.
I'm just here. Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned from watching a lot of pro wrestling, and I was watching Dark Side of the Ring with Marty Jannetty, and he talked about that. Something that's always been said, which is you want someone to boo you and you want someone to cheer you. When someone comes out and they're like,
Mm.
eh, I mean, you like me?
Yeah, you don't even register. You're not even on
You
my
hate me?
radar.
Because the thing about people don't realize when someone hates you, that's a sign that there's going to be someone who likes you. And if someone likes you, that's a sign someone's going to hate you, and you're kept in that that energy, that polarizing energy, and it propels you forward as a performer. When someone's apathetic, they can care if you're there, or you're not. A lot of young men that we're talking about are apathetic. They fit that MO of like, I'm just here. You want to go to the job? I mean, hey man, you want to go to play ball? I mean, I had a mutual friend of ours who was like, his advice to men is start doing something, collect some
Hmm.
cans that you use, like spindrifts and beer cans, and take them down and recycle them. Get the
Yeah, do
5 cents
something.
return. Do something. Take a walk. Just start taking a 5 mile walk every day. And David Goggins talks about this with his own story, starting to break out of his, you know, old habits of just overeating and failure and not being able to do much, pushing yourself slowly but surely, consistently out of that mode of thinking. And as you work out more, we know that the greatest antidepressant is exercise and weightlifting. So there's something to do, but you know, it just seems like that kid, this shooter, the alleged shooter, or pretty much we know who's the shooter, attempted to assassinate former President Trump, fits the MO. No friends, no political
Man,
leanings, not passionate about anything.
man.
From what we know now at this point, could change. So
Makes you
maybe
think
this will
about the
come up.
significance of purpose. It
Yes,
makes you
and
think
meaning.
about, yeah, the meaning.
My therapist was talking to me about that. What's your meaning? What's your meaning?
Yo, I know we're coming up on time, but I just
Yeah,
want to say this really quickly to any man who's listening, watching. I know a lot of times, the content can seem like it is geared towards women, but like, believe me when I tell you, there's a place for your voice, whether on this platform or any others. Like, we are definitely considering y'all, and some of the things that we talk about. Like, it's not all about women. It's not all about men. Like, yo, we love y'all and we care for y'all too.
yeah, you are
And I
loved,
hope y'all know that.
and if you need help, please seek out hotlines. There's a bunch of hotlines out there. There are therapists. Don't be ashamed to reach out to an established professional clinician who can help guide you into a better place. With that said, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Check us out at www.lovegodlovesexpodcast.net. We have tons of free content and ebooks there for you. Please come join the community. That's how we're going to talk to people, catch up with you guys, and give you tons of other free goodies over time. Until then, take care. My name's Heath.
And Jamie, yeah.
All right,
Peace.
take care. You'll let it ride for a second, just in quiet, because I'm just going to give it 10 seconds of quiet. Perfect, because if that my air conditioner's in the background, I can track it through that and then eliminate it out of the track. That's perfect. You can stop it.